This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Everyone always says to practice boxes, but nobody ever explains why. The result is that people draw hundreds of boxes without knowing why, and like I said in my previous video, if you don't understand why you're practicing something, it won't help you. So in this video, I'll be going over why boxes are important. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so on Patreon and through YouTube memberships, and you can also become a disappointment in our Discord server by not doing the homework I said every week. First of all, I'm going to assume that you already understand the rules for how to draw boxes. If you don't, I have another video that talks about that. Now, the main benefit of using a box is that it's a form that consists of 3 sets of straight lines that all exist at 90 degrees to each other. The reason why this is good is because when straight lines get foreshortened, nothing really changes about the line, it stays straight. Whereas when it comes to curved lines, the degree of curvature on those lines can change depending on the angle that we're looking at them from. Also, most objects have 90-degree corners, so it makes sense to use a boxy form to quickly place these objects. All of that stuff makes sense, and I'm sure you were already aware of it, and by knowing that information, you'll be able to draw boxes in perspective. However, boxes are just the guidelines. We use them to set up the perspective, and then we need to draw the actual object on top. The thing people do wrong or never consider when it comes to drawing boxes is this transition from box to object. A box is a really abstract form. Both of these are proper boxes, but they look completely different proportionally. If you want to draw an actual object, like a microwave for example, you're dealing with an object that has much better defined proportions. These are both drawings of microwaves, but only one of these is correct. Now we finally get to the issue people have when it comes to practicing boxes. When you're practicing boxes, your goal is to draw a box that can represent an object. Therefore, this box has to be proportioned in a way that makes sense according to the angle that we're seeing this box from. But first, this video is sponsored by Skillshare. You've probably heard me talk about Skillshare in the past, and I'm gonna have to do it again because there are some really good classes on Skillshare that will help you become a better artist. Now, in case you don't know, Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes covering a very wide range of topics, including drawing, painting, animation, and so forth. On top of that, these classes are all taught by industry professionals. Right now, Skillshare is focusing on the theme of building daily art habits because if you really want to improve, you can't just rely on random bursts of motivation. You have to draw even when you don't feel like it, and classes like Jazz's 28-day drawing challenge can help with building that habit. Now, as usual, I have to recommend Brent Eviston's classes. In terms of pure fundamentals, I think these are some of the best classes you can find on the entire internet. It is more of a classical approach, so there's a bigger focus on things like still lifes and realism and less on perspective and stylization, but those are still things that are necessary to know. So if you want to work on your fundamentals, I would highly recommend checking these classes out. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. And now back to the video. We'll have to take a look at rotation to understand this better. If we're looking at a plane head-on, it'll be at its widest. As soon as this plane starts to rotate away from us, it'll become less wide until eventually it becomes so thin that we can't see it anymore. This is called foreshortening, by the way. There's another thing that determines how wide planes should be, and that's where they're positioned in space. The closer an object is to the camera, the bigger it'll appear and the wider the plane will be. And then of course, the deeper in the depth it is, the less wide the plane becomes. Also, the closer an object is to our center of vision, the less wide the plane will appear. You can test this pretty easily with the plane duplication technique in perspective. Planes that are more off to the side will appear wider, and the same thing happens to planes that are further away from the horizon line vertically. This foreshortening starts to become really annoying when we're dealing with objects that are not cubical, so one side is way longer than the other, like with a couch. These objects are affected by foreshortening the same way as a cube. The long side becomes thinner until eventually we can't see it anymore. But we still have to create the appearance of that side being longer to stop it from looking like a cube. The way to do that would be to look at how the lines going into the depth are angled in relation to how long this side plane is. If we want to make this more cubical, we can retain these angles, but we'd have to shorten the side plane a bit, and then we end up with something like that. What people tend to do when practicing boxes is just focusing on the vanishing points and drawing boxes of random sizes with no consideration for how the box is rotated or where it is in space. It is important to make your boxes converge to vanishing points properly. In fact, that's probably the most important thing, at least when you're a beginner. But the second most important thing is thinking about proportions. Don't just draw random boxes. Think about where the box will be in space first, then decide how the box is rotated, draw the height of the box, and now think about how wide each plane needs to be. You have to use your intuition to decide most of these things, which is why we practice drawing these random boxes. You need intuition to draw these boxes, which ends up improving your intuition, which allows you to draw better boxes, and that ends up improving your intuition even further, and it just keeps going like that. I make it sound easy, but it does take a bit more than just drawing random boxes. You also have to know what normal proportions are like. If you're trying to draw a person, you can't make the hips this wide compared to the rest of the body. So, to practice boxes effectively, you need to do all the stuff that I talked about previously, and you need to do that whilst thinking about proportions. The best way to learn that would be to find a simple object and first reduce it to a box and then check the proportions. If anything looks off, try to think about why. Maybe your vanishing points are in the wrong place, maybe you made the object too tall, or maybe you rotated it too much. Thinking about why your proportions are off will make you understand how to get them right. Also, if you're wondering where to place your vanishing points, because I'm sure somebody will ask about this, their position on the horizon line is based on the rotation of the object that converges to them, and the distance between vanishing points is based on focal length. The longer your lens, the further away the vanishing points will be from each other, and that makes the image flatter. Shorter lenses have vanishing points that are closer to each other and create more distorted images. And there's one more thing. Vanishing points work based on degrees. If I place two vanishing points on a horizon line, I can draw a box, and if I intend for this box to have 90-degree corners, whatever object I now draw converging to this set of two vanishing points will have a 90-degree corner in perspective. By drawing a box as the first object in the scene, we can be sure that we have vanishing points that create 90-degree angles, and then from there we can draw something like a room. If I move one of the points without also moving the other one, and then I draw a box converging to these points, this box will not have a 90-degree corner as long as it's supposed to be part of the same scene as these other boxes. I'm sure that was kind of hard to follow, so if you want to learn more about this, I'd recommend picking up Craig Atterbury's Complete Guide to Perspective Drawing. It's a very technical book, but it does explain all of this stuff. So in conclusion, practicing boxes will make you better at drawing in 3D, but you can't just draw them at random. You have to consider the proportions, and as long as you can get the proportions right, you can draw basically anything you want. You won't be able to consider the proportions if you've never drawn objects before, so my advice is to find a reference, draw that reference as a box, then draw the actual object, and then identify your mistakes. Keep practicing that, and eventually you'll understand how to proportion boxes in perspective. And once you're at that level, that's when you can fill up pages and pages with random boxes and have the practice actually be effective. That's also when you'll be able to apply boxes to the human figure, because you can actually tilt them without losing the proportions. And that's it for the video. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know in the comments what else you want to see, and don't forget, if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so on Patreon and YouTube memberships. And you can also join the Discord if you'd like to participate in the homework stuff. But I guess I'll catch you all next time.